You need to ask me tomorrow.
Oh my gosh, we're gonna get right the fuck into it because we are
Oh
late and we got some
my
shit today. If you
God.
see this and you see that, that's right. Dun 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 dun. It's lunch break news. Dumb lunch break boys.
One of them grades.
The Pharaoh Live, the one and only Josh. If you know another, he's a fucking fraud. So
Mm-hmm.
we are gonna run through the topics of the day. Please join us tomorrow where we go into these topics on detail. We are running late today, and also we've got a fucking doozy. So these are kind of ancillary headlines that we will cover more tomorrow. As you guys come in, please like, share, subscribe, etc. So real quick, Putin to Alaska on Friday, Josh.
Yep,
We'll talk
yep.
about that more tomorrow, but it looks like they're going to try to work on a way to end that war in Ukraine that we are all fucking tired of.
It'd be great.
UFC signs a humongous TV deal. We thought they would go back to ESPN, especially ESPN is looking stronger than ever. They signed that deal with the NFL distributions. They now have NFL Red Zone, and they have more NFL games to
Ooh.
stream. So they are in my opinion, the sports leader of the world when it comes to
Once
broadcasting.
again.
Once again, but UFC looks like they are going to go to hopefully greener pastures. They're going to Paramount. 7 years, 7.7 billion. The math is 1.1 billion a year, 40 fights, 40 fight cards a year. And we will no longer have to pay for fucking pay-per-views, baby. One, $8, or $13 subscription is going to get you 40 UFC fights a year. Josh, I'm going to activate my Paramount again, not even going to lie to you.
100%. I think I actually get a free premium account
Okay.
through my phone service. So that'll
There
be
we
a
go.
great thing.
There we go. And then you're going to password share with your boy. All right.
100%. Oh, wait, really quick.
Go ahead.
I
Go
thought
ahead.
they would command more money. 100%.
Me too.
But I hope that the fighters take are alerted by this, and this could be the perfect time for them to, do something to activate that negotiating power
Yeah.
to get more of the revenue split. But
This would be a great time to do that. We will talk more about what that looks like and what it may look like between now and the beginning of 2026 when that deal goes into effect. Last but not least, before we get to the main topic of the day, which is going to take the bulk of the show up. Again, guys, thank you for liking. Thank you for joining. Make sure you follow for all the updates. But RIP to a journalist from Al Jazeera, lost his life in the Israel Gaza / Palestine conflict that's going on. That, Josh, we have purposely avoided talking about this war for a lot of reasons. One being the algorithm, two being because how polarizing the politics are involving this conflict. But because we are goddamn journalists,
yeah,
it is a RIP in all seriousness, no jokes, no laughs. Rest in peace to not only the journalist that was targeted by the Israeli government, but the other 3 journalists, because there was 4 total that lost their lives in that targeted attack. And rest in peace to all 7 of the individuals, including the 4 journalists that lost their lives in that targeted attack from the Israeli government, Josh. All right. Now, I told you guys that there's going to be a main topic that's going to take up the bulk of today. To no one's surprise, it's going to be, if you follow my page, you see I reposted the clip of what our speculation was going to be on the government, the federal government taking control as somewhat of Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C., for our international viewers, is the capital of this great United States. We had a lot of speculation, Josh.
Yeah.
We were right.
We were.
We were wrong. We oversold and undersold.
Right.
I say that because I did not, neither one of us were 100% correct. So let's go get into some of the facts, Josh, and then we'll get into our stances a little bit, okay? And of course, this is going to be a developing story. Trump has a presser. Before I went off to lunch, it was still going on. So we don't have all the information. He's still answering questions. We will have a full breakdown for you guys tomorrow, okay? So, Josh, Feds are taking over. They're using Section 740 of the Columbia Home Rule Act. That gives the federal government the power to seize control of D.C. Somewhat. Okay, I say somewhat because they're not kicking out the mayor. They're not removing all the board members, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So, Josh, the National Guard is going to come in to back up and partly replace the Metro Police Force. That is their local Washington, D.C. Police force. The 800 guardsmen per Trump are going to be ready to go by end of this week. Yes, 800 armed military members are going to be on the streets, along with the remaining Metro Police, along with, per Trump, FBI agents. So there's going to be federal agents. There's going to be active military, if you want to call armed guard, the National Guard, armed forces, which I do, are going to be on the streets along with the cops. They say that they are doing this to combat the violence. They say they're doing this to get the drugs off the streets. Right here, Why Not TikTok Shop says, I mean, DC is in complete chaos. If you guys follow us on Friday, we said the same thing. Neither one of us, despite our points and our differing points on this topic, would tell anybody that DC is great. On Friday, we said it needs to be cleaned up. On Friday, we said there's too much crime going on. And I don't think anybody will disagree. What I was fearful of is what that would look like, okay? So I'm going to tell you guys some of the rhetoric that's troubling for me, if you don't mind, real quick, Josh. Trump said something that concerned me a bit, right? He said that they are going to start getting laws passed so that they can be tougher on crime. This is akin for me when they were talking, when you had Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, and other people calling children and communities super predators, right? This is when they created the 3-strike rule. That's when they made it easier to lock people up for life. They told us, they promised America that this is what we need to clean up the streets. This is what we need to save the children. What we've come to learn years later, unfortunately, is that despite dozens of hundreds and thousands of people being locked up with these huge criminal sentences for non-violent crimes, crime only went up. It didn't help a goddamn soul. You understand what I'm saying to you? Those laws about super predators and the 3-strike rules did fucking nothing to protect you. I need you guys, take these fucking glasses off real quick, Josh. I need you guys to understand what I'm saying. That doesn't mean that the Pharaoh Alive is here saying not to put anybody in jail. This is me saying that doing more of the same fucking thing has never worked in our country. Being harder on crime simply by locking them up for longer, being harder on crime simply by making more rules doesn't fucking work. Let's go back past before the super predators, Josh, to when they try to take alcohol off the streets. What we know as prohibition. How good did that fucking work? It didn't. All it did is embolden the Italian mafia. All it did is bring huge revenue to the Italian mafia. The mafia wouldn't have been anywhere near as big as what it was, right? You probably would have had the Godfather trilogy as big as it was, if not for Prohibition. That's how these mobsters made their fucking money within 2 years, because Prohibition didn't last long, Josh. They realized real quick that we're going too far and this isn't working. Can you quit using the F word? Clifford Green, I cannot stop using the F word. I will respect you. I will accept the like, the follow, and you can go on. This is Donald Trump's TikTok. I will use the F word. I'm sorry if I offend anyone. As TikTok Shop says, go somewhere else. Yeah, we appreciate you, Clifford Green, but I appreciate my right to free speech as well. Also, they said they are going to formally declare a state of emergency. I'm always concerned, guys, when they use things like declaring state of emergencies to combat crime, right? Because that's not what these state of emergencies were created for. I know people are saying, well, it's crazy, so it must be state of emergency. You got to understand that just because that's the colloquialism that you use doesn't mean that that's what these laws are written to combat. That's like using FEMA to build more jails. That's not, you could say because it's a state of emergency, we need more prisons, and those FEMA funds are for states of emergency. But we all know that FEMA is supposed to be protecting New Orleans from a flood versus building new privatized or publicly owned prisons, right? They also are talking about creating more laws so that they can better punish juveniles. That is concerning to me. I would love to see if they're just talking about violent juveniles, right? This juvenile took a life. Then I can be open to discussion. But what I'm fearful of, just because I don't trust the government at their word, I do it by their actions. What I'm worried about is this creating a scenario where you have a 14-year-old drug dealer, right, who he was caught 3 times selling weed, and now he's in jail for 25 years. Never hurt anybody that they can prove, never broken anybody's home, never had a gun on him. They found him with weed 3 times, and now they get him for distribution, and he's in jail for 20 years. Now, I'm speculating, guys, because we still need all the facts. This is ongoing. This is happening right now. Donald Trump is holding a presser right the F now. You like that, Clifford? I went ahead and said F for you. You see that?
I saw
You see
that.
how much of a goddamn journalist I
Listening
am?
to the audience.
Shit, crazy. All right. Last thing, Josh, and I'm going to toss it to you because we don't have time. Here's something concerning for me. Trump says that these criminals are beyond rehabilitation. I'm not saying I disagree in every sense. I sure as hell don't agree in every sense either. What worries me that a sitting president is saying that us, who we have a Justice Department not a punishment department. We have a correctional facility, not a punishment facility. If we're going to call it corrections, if we're going to call it justice, then we can't then say to people that they are prosecuting have no way of being rehabbed, in which case, why are we even giving them any sentence? Why not just lock them up for life? Why are we having correctional facility? Why aren't we having punishment camps? Call it what it is. But when you use this back and forth as a correctional facility, but they can't be corrected, then there's disillusion there. We allow ourselves to be lied to there. And that is concerning to me. Exactly. That's been America for the last 40 years. Appreciate you. Josh, I did a lot of ranting. I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying not to do too much on this one because there's so many questions out there. I'm going to let Josh say his piece.
So there are a lot of questions and things that we don't know yet, things that haven't been put in place lawfully, or we don't know what it's going to look like for the takeover of DC and the possible expansion to other cities around America. Now, I do think, starting with DC will be definitely. DC will be an example of what could happen for all these other cities. I feel as though we will see the initial backlash or the quote unquote results in DC, and then they will expand to other areas. Now, if you live in these cities and you live in a high crime area, I don't really see that many drawbacks. I just don't, right? Now, for instance, the potential of the government using this to expand power, 100% is a real thing. This is what they do with everything, right? But the benefit of power being expanded amongst certain communities is also a real thing in the long run, because certain things, this behavior from the government and them having powers, expanded their powers in that city, where it's like, oh yeah, if you're doing X, Y, and Z crime, again, we don't know what's going to happen, the changes in the law. We don't know these things yet. Well, let's just say worst come to worst, right? Then these people in these communities, guess what? They actually have an enemy that aren't each other. They actually have one where it can possibly force these residents in these high crime areas to change the culture of the area. Where now in the high crime areas, there's a no snitching culture. There is a disrespect equals murder culture. They're not even fighting or killing over drugs anymore. They're not. Like, that's not a thing. They're not fighting or killing for money. This is my area. This is my territory. They're not even fighting or killing for that anymore. If you pay attention to anything associated with the music, the cultural aspects that come from these areas, you know exactly what the conflicts are over. You know exactly why, what type of weaponry they have. They are posting it online everywhere. These kids have switches.
Yeah.
Where you just put your finger on the trigger and the entire clip is gone.
Yep.
The whole clip is gone. Now, the way that they're going about it, I believe that they need to hire and include specialized individuals and entire teams that understand the culture and the community, the effect that boots on the ground or certain policies will have on the youth and on the adults in these areas. Now, I always say juveniles are a very interesting test subject because we never the criminal justice system never considers grooming in regards to juveniles actually committing crimes. Yep. This is never considered. Somehow it's considered in sexual assault cases. I don't understand why. Somehow it's considered in Jeffrey Epstein or the P. Diddy case, where you could be someone who actually committed a crime and actually get off with immunity. The only equivalent of that happening in high crime areas are informants, where informants have the liberty to do whatever crime and they do not get prosecuted, right? But these are the same individuals that are responsible for grooming the culture in which these children grow up in. So whose fault is it really? And what actually needs to change? For me, I do believe that the Trump administration is doing two things at once, right? They are fighting doing way more than words and fighting the cartels, who is responsible for bringing most of the drugs here. And then they're also planning on combating the aspect of the high crime areas, which actually distributes the drugs and X, Y, and Z to all the other neighborhoods in America. Now, if you stop both, well, there's no way to stop it, but if you decrease and minimize both, they could have a trickle down effect on the culture, the safety, and the actual conditions of these neighborhoods. That is best case scenario.
Sure.
Worst case scenario, tons of people are being arrested, tons of people are doing football numbers, and it actually makes the communities worse because there are even less dads around.
Yeah. So, Josh,
So
we're running out of time, guys. One, why TikTok Shop said is clearly politically based because there are cities like in Alabama, the top 3 crime rates, and those cities aren't being
remember, I
discussed.
mentioned that.
And Josh,
Yeah,
you
the
didn't mention that. Real quick, I just want to touch everybody
right.
who commented. Skibo, what happened? So this is in relation to Trump's press conference today, stating what it's going to look like with the feds taking over and putting National Guard boots on the ground in Washington, D.C. And real quick, I know we had Trump talking about military operations in Mexico again against cartel. So, guys, there's a lot that came out today.
Yeah.
We're going to come back tomorrow to talk about it in details. I want to make sure that I got what I had to say out. Just as importantly, I wanted Josh to get what he had to say out. There are so many details, we just don't have the time. This is lunch break news.
It is.
We do have a finite amount of time for our lunch break. If you don't mind, I'm going to leave you guys with this. The recidivism rate in America is one of, if not the highest in the world. So I need you guys to understand. We say we're the greatest nation, and I think so too. We're one of the most prosperous nations on earth. There's no argument about that. We are the land of opportunities and dreams, and yet we have a over 70% recidivism rate. That means everyone that gets out of jail within 5 years, 70% of those people are back in jail. After 10 years, that skyrockets to over 84%. Europe has some countries underneath 20%. Guys, I need you to understand the reason why I am having the type of reaction that I'm having is because I've said it before on other topics. I'll say it again. Doing the same thing, but just doing it more or less is not a solution. And it sure as hell is not a resolution. Josh, I'll let you have the last word.
All right. So the last word to me would be the changes, and it is the same thing, essentially the same thing, just to another scale. And I would add the addition to the fight against the cartels. That is another element that will have a trickle down effect on the actual inner cities and high crime areas that are being proposed to being taken over like DC. But to me, if you are in those areas, you're an activist. You're a quote unquote community leader. You're a councilman, a mayor, anything like this. You should take full advantage of what is coming your way. You need to take full advantage if you really care about your people. Now, what I mean by that is framing things in a way to your people, creating a narrative to your people to change the culture, because it's not a poverty thing, it's a cultural thing. That's all it is. Where we say that America is the most prosperous country in the world, America is the best country in the world. You know what also come with prosperity? Crime, drugs. We also lead in these two as well. Violence. We lead in that shit as well. The thing is, because there's a cultural element that's being ignored, and every time it's a guess or there's a hypothesis on how to fix the issue that are ruining inner cities and ruining our youth. We have two things we need to combat: is the culture and drugs. These are the two things that are heavily influencing our youth. And what are we going to do? Because the birth rate is already dying. There's already too much differences in men and women where they're not getting along. We're not getting along at all. So literally, in order to save the future and the youth, and to operate in the same America that we grew up living in, for it to stay as prosperous nation, for us to lead in all of these great aspects of life, and to be the land of opportunity, we're going to need more people to be born, and for them to be born with better values. Are the values in the inner cities good? No, they're not. I'm from the inner city. Absolutely not, right? But what I will tell you is that it's a cultural thing. This thing, if you're a community leader, if you're any of those things, right, you need to use this as a pivot to a better culture, because before certain things happen, before government intervention,
Mhm.
after the civil rights movement, both well prior to the civil rights movement, the culture amongst in these areas were much better.
Mhm.
The change happened due to the change in culture happened to a big change happening in policy and government, which actually had trickle down effects. Where I believe if this is as severe as we believe on the pessimistic side, that will have the same reverberations on the opposite. Me thinking optimistic about the pessimistic side of application of law, right? So to me, it's like, oh, people only change as a group when there's an existential threat. That's it. When there's a threat, then people start acting different. And for the last 30, 40 years, that hasn't been a real threat. The government's been too scared to do anything, and the government has been also too scared to not help,
Mm.
where what will be considered as help, giving money, giving resources, where the biggest help that's needed is cultural changes. Now, them going about it, no, they're not doing this for the people. The people need to use this to do for themselves. The people need to use this in order to do for themselves because the government does not care about how you live on the day to day. They don't, bro. Like, and they especially don't care about the areas that they're talking about taking over. So the people need to use this to do for themselves. That's the only way any good is going to come out of it. Because if we stand pat and sit on our hands, it's just going to get worse. But yeah.
Josh, appreciate you today more than most days. We appreciate y'all today more than most days. F Your Feeling says, are we still resting? I'm not sure what you mean by that because these two right here, you see that energy? Always woke. You understand? And I mean woke in the cool sense, not woke in what you guys changed it to, okay? We're actually eyes open. You understand what I'm saying to you? Guys, we appreciate you. Thank you for joining us. Josh cannot be tamed. I'm all riled up. We're out of here. It was a very serious day, but I hope you guys had a little bit of fun. We'll catch you next time on Lunch Break News. We're going to have more on this. Don't worry. We appreciate